We came up very poor and hard-timey, and that made me want to reach for the stars and reach for the sky. I figured in the chicken business, you ain't gonna make no bunch of money, but you'll make enough to live. You know, I wanted better for my son than I had, and I wanted to provide for him a good, decent living. I've gone from making $30,000 to on welfare. It started out at $750,000. That was what I had to pay the bank. And I had paid down to $70,000. Everything was just doing good, and somehow another cook found out that I was about to get them paid for, and they just still might upgrade.
The American meat industry is highly concentrated in the hands of just 6 companies that control and produce about 2/3 of all American meat production. Half of poultry farmers report having just 1 or 2 contractors to work with in their area. Because there are often not a lot of other companies for these farmers to work with, farmers are completely at the mercy of these companies. When a farmer is already struggling to pay off their first huge upfront investment, the contractor forces them to invest in a new upgrade. All of a sudden, they get trapped with even more debt.
We provided the land, the labor. It's basically I agree to do whatever they tell me to do. I mean, the improvements that we were required to make to those buildings to keep raising birds never paid for themselves. It was just this treadmill of debt. My name is Craig Watts, and I am a former contract poultry producer. I'm here in southeastern North Carolina. I have been on this family farm pretty much my whole life. My job was primarily to walk in here and pick up dead chickens and cull chickens out that were deformed. That was, I called myself the barnyard janitor. That's what I was. Purdue at that time, to me, it was just a brand name that I recognized, and I thought they were a good company. You know, they extracted every dime I had. They say you're going to pay the houses off in 10 years, but once you do that, or once you get close to that point, they know that, and they're going to come out here, and there's going to be this new thing that you've got to have, and we're not going to make you do it, but if you don't do it, we're not going to bring any more birds. So that's making it mandatory without using the word mandatory.
Well, it started out with just simple things like new curtains, and they went from there to new brooders, new water line, static pressure, the curtains on the inside. I wanted new cool cells, and the generator. Everything in my chicken house had been overhauled. Each one of those upgrades was around $150,000 to $250,000. Once the last money I got, they said, we won't never bother them again, we promise. And the next year, they came out with a list of 23 items on it. And that's what put me out of business. Because the bank said, we're not gonna loan any more money. The bank told me to sell the houses. They wanted their money. Didn't care where it came from. All they wanted was their money. They sent the deputy out there, and the deputy said, Mr. Sanders, I ain't never had no trouble out of you. Said, why am I here? I says, I'm being foreclosed on. They're giving me 7 days to get out. This is my old home. I had 3 chicken houses here and 4 up there. And that was my house right there, and that's the compost and the barn right there that I built the house to. So this is pretty much everything that I did right here. You know, seeing something all falling and propped in like that, because I never would have let that happen. To have to lose like that, after putting all that sweat and blood into this, and it benefits somebody else. You know, it hurts me to look at it. It hurts me to know that somebody else enjoying what I work for, and you know, all of the things that I accomplish, and you know, it just hurts me to my heart.
A lot of consolidation has happened through vertical integration, so where you maybe had a farmer working with local seed companies, maybe buying, you know, baby chicks from a local company. Now you have one company called an integrator, which owns everything across the supply chain.
Purdue owned the birds, Purdue owned the feed, Purdue owned the medication. I had no control over the inputs that came to me to raise. I had no control over the chicks. I had no control over when they stepped on my farm. And once they stepped on my farm, I might as well just handed the keys to them because they were in control. So to call me independent is a joke.
In some of the poorest counties in rural America with few choices for jobs, the chicken industry rolls up, offers a contract, and it seems like a dream come true, when in reality, they become indentured servants.
All of the cost is borne by the farmer. Those upgrades that are being made in an effort to become more efficient, more mechanized.
This entire system is set up in a way where animals are treated like commodities and cogs. They're treated as beings that can put on weight as fast as they can, and this really doesn't treat an animal like an animal.
They're using a fast growth genetics that means the birds grow so big, so fast, they can barely hold their own weight. That causes them to sit a lot, and they're sitting on that wet ammonia-ridden litter with lots of feces on it, which means they get burns on their feet and you have burns on their chest from sitting on that wet litter all the time.
Because you're in here breathing it, and you know what you feel like when you get home. These birds, I'm only in here for a couple of hours a day. The birds are in here 24/7, and they've got just this miserable environment. And then you see the deformities.
In the United States alone, 9 billion with a B chickens are raised and slaughtered every year. And they constitute 90% of all the individual animals that we kill for food.
You either have good animal welfare and not have industrial agriculture, or you don't have industrial agriculture and you have good animal welfare. You can't have both.
My grandfather lived right down the street there, and he farmed cotton and corn, and my dad did the same thing. I remember a lot of times my dad, the white guy, he'd tell him how much to spend and how much he had to spend, and he better stretches like it's bubble gum and those type things. And for a while I was kind of ashamed of it, but as what we're going through nowadays, I'm not ashamed of it anymore.
Some people have compared the contract poultry growing system to sharecropping in the sense that a farmer has little control over their business and in some cases don't even fully own it. They have a really restrictive relationship with one major buyer and are trapped in these cycles of debt that they're continuously paying off. It's an extension of the exploitation of black and brown labor that's existed in the food system since the institution of slavery. I don't think there's a stronger type case of systemic racism in the American economy than agriculture. I mean, you just look at who owns wealth in this system and it's segregated. Over 90% of farms are owned by white people. People of color and black farmers in particular have been driven out of agriculture entirely and been actively undermined in keeping their land. And the same thing happens in the poultry industry, the same way that these companies have complete ability to pick winners and losers based on the inputs they give them or the equipment costs they require of them. Companies have been shown to target black farmers, especially in the South, and drive them out of business.
Mr. Sanders was pushed out as a Black farmer, the last Black farmer to be growing chickens for this chicken company in the whole state of Mississippi. The final list of the demands that they imposed on him were demands that they were not imposing on the white farmers. Curiously, the bank valued the property at one very high number when Mr. Sanders' son offered to try to buy it and was taking out the loan. And they said, no, we're not going to let your son buy this property. Our allegation in the complaint is that it was sold in foreclosure for a fraction, ultimately, of the amount that it was valued at by the bank to a company that's owned by a relative of employees of the chicken company.
He bought the farm for $110,000. That's what he told me. And he turned around and sold it for $390,000. You know how much I paid for that place, the house and all those chicken houses in our land? $1 million. It hurts. I was planning on dying here and, spend the rest of my life right here and leaving it for my son and all that kind of stuff. And this was home right here. And now we got to try to find a place to call home again.
The first time I met Craig, I was not in any way prepared for the feeling I was going to have by the end of talking to him. And that feeling actually was one of shame. Shame that I had never thought about this farmer as a human being.
You've never met Bean? I don't think I have. Yeah. He's bound down in his back legs. He can't get around too good.
I used to just think about destroying factory farming, destroying animal agriculture. But I think about the flip side of that coin now, which is about constructing something better.
We started coming up with this plan of a replicable model that all farmers who wanted to get out could follow, that we would repurpose this facility into something better. And we looked at everything. We looked at blueberries and strawberries and hydroponic lettuce, and we settled on mushrooms.
So this one of these is 1 pound of mushrooms.
Right.
And that 1 pound of mushrooms sells for $6.
$6. That's what they told me, and it can be up to $9.
And how much did you used to get for chickens?
Well, it's $6 a pound versus 5 cents a pound.
Yeah.
When we farm, the way we farm, it has to be something that's beneficial to the environment, to the animals, beneficial to the communities, and probably most importantly, beneficial to the consumer. The growing the mushrooms is going to be, somewhat of a product of my planning, and if it gets broke, I'm going to be the one that broke it, and so I've got to fix it. I'm not going to be beholden to somebody else. I'm not making chickens miserable to make $1.